people ask me, what was your salary when you came? And I've got my first year contract, which is framed. It's a one-page, three-paragraph contract. The party of the first part, the party of the second part. The salary is $12,000. Well, the first year we were able to get off to a good start, but I got a real initiation, because before I tell you about the first game my second year, I'll need to tell you about the first game my first year. And that was against Alabama, who were national champions. That was in Tuscaloosa. That was against Bear Bryant. That was against a quarterback named Joe Namath. But I was young enough and foolish enough to think we were going to win the game because I had scouted them personally. Well, I got a real education, and so we went to a bowl game that first year, and it was like we went to the Sugar Bowl winning the national championship, even though it was the Sun Bowl at the time. So it led into next year, and we opened back up against Alabama. And Alabama was preseason picked national champions. And so we had a stunning upset. And it all came about by a play that we used to run when I played football in the streets of Mobile. We sat around and had everything all worked out, and then because we were not a fast-scoring offense, what we were going to do if we got behind and we had to get a score and there was a minute or two left. So we put in this, what we call a flea flicker. It's now the hook and curl and lateral. But we call it the flea flicker, which is a different name that the pros use. But it's basically an end going out, catching a ball, and then a halfback trailing and pitching out to them. And we did that, executed it, and we then had to go for two because we still was behind, and it was a question of whether tying the football game or going for two. And there's no sense at that point in time to try to tie, you know. So we went for two and had a play that we call the two-point play. Back in those days, the two-point play just came into effect. You never had that before, and we had this one play that we practiced for 2 years and never had an occasion to use it. So we worked it so well that was successful. Then we had to stave off Alabama's rally and finally win the game. So it was a huge, huge upset, and I think one of the great upsets in Georgia's football history, because Alabama went on undefeated and won the national championship again.
So how old were you?
At the time, I was probably 32. Yeah. I didn't know I was that young.
You never do.
That's that's the beauty of youth. You know, you don't know any better. And I know this, when I look back on it, as an administrator, I never would have hired myself because my qualifications, I was 31 years old, I was the freshman coach at a rival school. But there again, I look back, and my wife Barbara and I say we were the only two that really thought it was a good hire. And I think people in those days, at least I never thought this way, that you need to run up a score on anybody. And there was sort of an unwritten way of acting among coaches. Even Bear Bryant never did that. So we came up in a time that, yeah, you want to soundly beat a football team and win, but you certainly don't want to totally embarrass somebody. And I think that was our thinking. And part of mine, it happened in 1966, the year we won the championship. Coach Bobby died in his last game against Georgia. And they were undefeated. They were undefeated coming into the game. We had lost one game by 1 point, so this was a big, big football game. And we had them beat soundly. But I played players, and they ended up scoring late, made it 27-14. And the next day on the television show in Atlanta, when Bobby died, saw me, he said, you were nice to me yesterday, and I appreciate that. So there was sort of this, you know, respect among coaches that sometimes I wonder about today when you're driving to make the biggest impression so that your team can be ranked high. On the other hand, there's some interesting memories with Prince Charles, to be able to meet the Prince, which we did before the game, and I gave him a football, as I remember. Now, Fran Kersey was the coach at Kentucky, and this is what I'll never forget. So Kersey is just kind of an interesting fella, so he was chewing gum, so he pulled out a piece of gum and folded it back and he said, "Gum Prince." Well, when he said that, the prince, who was very, kind of said, "Oh, no thank you, no thank you." But I can still see that picture of Fran Kersey pulling that wrapper back and saying, "Gum Prince." During the season, it's always the next game. And you can't celebrate long. You can celebrate Saturday night, and then Sunday, you review the film, and then you get the scouting report on the next team. By Sunday night, you got headaches again getting ready for the next team. So you never can quite enjoy it until the final game when it's all over. And then you have a period of time in which you can enjoy it. And then it just goes by so fast that all of a sudden the next season is there. You can't enjoy the previous season too long. So it's that constant, and I guess maybe I'm enjoying it more now, and people say, how? Well, it's you enjoy the victories, and you enjoy some of the great moments. And that never lessens, but what becomes increasingly more important is the relationship with your players. And the fact that I get to visit with them, get to know them a little bit better than I did as a coach player. And I always said the greatest reward that coaches have, like teachers, is when one of your former players will come back and say 2 simple words, "Thanks, Coach." And that's very meaningful. So, yeah, I guess I'm enjoying it more now than I ever have.